we have a lot of potholes. I moved out here in October, and I'm like, man, I thought Arizona was bad, and this is a record-setting pothole area.
Yeah, guess how much the average Tennessean spends on road repairs, for driving repairs on their car?
How much?
$989 a year per
That's
our
huge.
Department of Transportation.
That's why I walk to work.
Yep.
It's crazy how bad it is. I thought, well, maybe it's going to be a little bit better. So what's the deal with that? Explain it to us.
Yeah, so Tennessee still hasn't legalized the recreational sale of marijuana. And so,
which is silly.
And I always love scheming. And so I thought, how can I connect, what is a funding revenue stream that I can connect to the transportation needs of the state? And so I came up with Pot for Potholes, which legalizes marijuana. And then 75% of that revenue, the sales tax revenue, moves into the Tennessee General Highway Fund.
So the General Highway Fund, see, this is my thing. When stuff moves into a general something, sometimes the things it's supposed to go for doesn't. Is this going to be earmarked? Like, you have to spend it on potholes.
I love that first of all, you are 100% correct. That is true. And so oftentimes what has happened is leadership has taken money from the regular general fund, right, to pay over here, but really they're robbing the general fund to pay for that. So this actually creates a new revenue stream that will be directed to the highway fund.
Okay. All right. We want to make sure about that. Obviously, it's a conservative state. I don't know if you're aware of this. It's a little bit redder than say a California or a New York. What's the reception? Because, you got a lot of people running around and go, oh, marijuana's going to lead to everybody doing drugs in the street and we're all going to die.
Yeah, I've had a few of those emails, and to what I say to that is, a lot of research shows that marijuana legalization has actually inhibited, the market, the dark market. It's helped veterans deal with who are addicted to opioids, so there's a lot of benefits. And the support has been statewide. We've seen small business owners. I saw a landscaping business in Clarksville put up on their sign that said legalize pothole repairs.
No, I like that. I like that. Somebody just said free the plant.
Free the plant, yeah.
So, but, people look and say, well, they did it in California. Well, California's a mess because California decided if you want to do heroin on the street, it's a lifestyle choice. And there should be, nobody should be punished for anything. So they're wackadoos. And having been in Europe for a long time, Portugal is one of those places where they legalize everything, but there comes a responsibility with that, which is what a lot of people over here don't understand.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I think that's valid. But what we've heard across the state is that it's really popular. I mean, public polling opinion shows that 63% of Tennesseans want marijuana legalization. So people want it.
Now, do you think you have a chance? Because you've tied it to something that people, like 100% of people want, which is the potholes not to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to a few Republican colleagues today who said, I firmly believe in legalization. I've also had a few rural legislators come up to me. One of them said, hey, I had a constituent call and, are you filling potholes with pot? I said, no.
What are they smoking?
Yeah, exactly. No, he laughed and he said, well, I've had a lot of constituents email me about this bill and everyone has been in support of it. So I'm really excited to see it move forward.
We'll see if it moves forward. Talking to Aftyn Behn here as we talk about pot for potholes. Because you, being a Democrat, obviously, again, last time I hear red, state. But the chances of you moving something like this, it's like, what's the coalition the libertarians you're going to have to get? But it's that middle, because the middle's kind of big.
Yeah, no, I love the question, and I'm an organizer at heart, which means in my free time, I build coalitions and move things forward. We've got the Hemp Growers Coalition on board, and I think also a lot of libertarian adjacent parties are excited to support it as well. I'm excited to see who comes out of the woodwork. And also, there's been a lot of wonderful hashtags and memes that are like getting a 420 on 440, for example. Although, so I'm excited. I think a lot of people are in support of it.
Like, because it's a weird thing where it's not legal, but the state teases it with some drinks or some of this. It's a kind of an odd, like, tiptoe around it because people don't want to lose their cred with God or whatever. I don't even know.
Yeah, and we haven't legalized medicinal as well, and so we have a patchwork system that a lot of, for example, vaping legalizes that. So this would be full legalization, and like I said, I'm excited to work across party lines to get it over the finish line.
Somebody said she needs help. She is an ad addicted. What? She's addicted? So they were
Actually, I don't
stoned.
smoke pot. Unfortunately, I probably should in the Tennessee General Assembly, dealing what I deal with on a daily basis.
You didn't walk out the other night because you weren't there. Would you have walked out? It's so ridiculous. It's such theatrics. Why does everybody do such like, I can't stand the theatrics. I think it's like if I was on the floor, I would just laugh. I was like, what are you doing?
Well, you're talking to someone who got her start in political theater. So I love the theatrics. I would have walked out because my constituents that's my district that I have.
The weirdo hippies.
I would say that they are
hippies.
They are engaged and
bunch of hippies.
Really care, and they're progressive. I have a very progressive district. Pot legalization,
well, of course.
ending the grocery tax.
Yeah, grocery tax.
And
but see, everybody wants to end a tax somewhere, and then nobody wants a tax somewhere else. Everybody wants something to. We all want to pay for something. We just don't want to be the ones to pay for it.
Well, do you know how our bill pays for it? Closing corporate tax loopholes. What if your listeners knew that companies who report over $1 billion of federal taxable income, 20% of those companies do not pay excise tax in the state of Tennessee?
Well, now they know. See, I mean, there's so many things out there you don't know. But why don't they?
Well,
was it something to lure businesses here?
That's what they say. However, they've shrouded our transparency laws, and we have both sides have actually proposed legislation that would remove or enhance transparency for what these corporations pay and what they don't pay, and it gets voted down every year.
I wonder why. And that's the other thing. It's always both parties, right? Like they're always like, oh man, I'm against you, really, but we're not really against each other because we're going to vote for the same thing because we both have donors.
Well, and that's why I think I relate a lot to the Libertarian Party in terms of corporate crony capitalism. That a lot of our state government has been bastardized by corporations that take over and leverage it for their own gain. And it discriminates against Tennessee small businesses. Think about it.
Well, it does.
If billion-dollar companies are able to go out there and lobby and spend hundreds of millions of dollars getting what they want, but the Tennessee small business or restaurant in my district can't do that, that's unfair.
I have a feeling a lot of vegetarian stuff in your district. Am I right?
You're not wrong.
Yeah, it's a bunch of weird bunch of hippies. Aftyn Behn's with us. Bunch of hippies. You guys know who you are. Hey, we were just talking earlier about Fish, the band, being in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because you feel like you like Fish. And they're just a jam band, and I think they're silly. So I just want to let everybody know that she already says they're stupid too. Okay, so I look at this, and I'm a big believer. Like I've never had a smoke in my life. I've never done a drug in my life. I don't drink. I'm a teetotaler, but I'm fine. Very libertarian in that sense. I don't care what you do as long as you're not hurting somebody else. And I don't need you smoking it outside. You go to San Francisco, and it's like you got back to you had a Bob Marley concert.
Everywhere.
It is.
It's everywhere.
Say, okay. Oh, yo, man, you feeling airy here? Let's have some fun here in San Francisco. No, I don't want that. What would be like what are we looking at? 21 and older, indoors? How would that work?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's modeled after the Massachusetts state law, which, and I don't know if you know this, but the first 2 years that they legalized pot generated over 122 million. But 21 and over, and making sure that it is highly regulated. I think that would be a compromise I'd be willing to make on this bill to ensure that my Republican colleagues who are a little more Bible beating, right, feel comfortable with it because
some of them wake and bake. They do.
Well, and I love a good regulatory environment, so let's go.
Everybody likes a good regulatory. Everybody wants to be regulated until they're not regular.
That's right.
Again, I find the whole thing fascinating because, oddly enough, a lot of people here on the text line are like, yeah, let's legalize this. Let's just say you do. What's the amount you think you would bring in that would cover the potholes? And how soon can we have those potholes covered? That's
a great question. So the first year it'd probably be a bit tempered, so maybe 50 to 60 million. But then immediately would go into the highway fund for those potholes. As folks, how quickly would they see those results? I'm not sure. However, the bill does include a percentage of that revenue to go to local governments. And so if you're out in these rural counties and they're, struggling to fill these potholes because they don't have any money, they don't have any tax base.
Well, if they're smart, they'll get on board because you guys could grow.
So, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'm helping you out.
Yeah, here we go. I need you to come testify.
Can you get raccoons? We're trying to get raccoons legalized here too, from what I understand. But because I look at it, I think, well, what is it going to cost to do this? Because I was looking at Lee the other night in his State of the State, and he's like, it's going to be $1 trillion. And I'm like, okay, that's for bridges and stuff, but for the potholes, what would be what are you looking at? Is it going to be $100 gazillion?
Yeah.
$1 billion?
So there was a report showing that we have a $78 billion backlog in infrastructure projects. I would say a third of that probably has to deal with potholes. And that's just road maintenance. That's not even future projects or bridges, et cetera. So, I would love to see these potholes. In fact, I want to do a pothole tour across the state.
Totally, bro.
And I would just like to say for folks listening, our Department of Transportation does an excellent job. It's just we haven't given them the necessary resources to do the job that we want them to do.
It's a struggle. Let's be real. We're talking to Aftyn Behn here, so we talk about the potholes here. You've got a lot to go up against, though, because, all joking aside, obviously, Lee, it's very conservative. Most of the time when we hear anything coming from the Democrats, it's national news because they were fired, but then they were rehired, kind of thing with the guns and the whole 9 yards. But there's got to be somewhere where you think you can really make a difference and get some of these people to push forward. What's the tax look like on this? Because California and several other states decided they were going to make it so ridiculously taxed that people just went back to the regular dealer.
Oh, that's interesting. No, I mean, it's comparable to other states around. So, I think we have it at 18 or 12%. So that's comparable to states around us, although no southern states have legalized it. And so I don't think we tax it out of existence because we want it to be accessible. And just to say a comment on your question about, the administrative burden to get it up and all running.
Yes.
The Hemp Growers Coalition, the group of hemp growers across the state, they already have the infrastructure. So they are all ready to, tackle this issue. And the good thing is that their accessibility and their availability to do this boxes out the what they call big hemp.
Oh, there's big hemp, huh?
Hey, Chad.
You've got big pharma, you've got big ag, you've got big hemp. And so we already have the little guys that are ready to go and gearing up. And they're in a great position to take this forward and beat out the big hemp guys.
We need to change our slogan to pot for T-Dot.
That's right. Pot for T-Dot. Somebody sent that in as a slogan.
You know what? I'm going to put that on a t-shirt.
Look at that. Pot for
thank you,
T-Dot.
listener.
That's right. Look at this. A lot of people, actually, it's funny. A lot of people are kind of actually in support. People you think are conservative see the MAGA stuff because that's the populism that goes with MAGA. I don't think people realize that.
Yes.
It's funny when people say these people over here are rhinos. I'm like, I don't think you know what a rhino is. Those are just conservatives. There's a populism that goes with, like you were talking about the libertarians, a lot of them who support Trump, because there's a certain populism that comes with it.
Yeah, I mean, I want the government out of my bedroom and off my body, which is, quintessentially libertarian.
Yeah,
so
that's what I always said. Why can't I sell my kidney?
Yeah.
Right?
Do you know the market for that?
It's huge.
Can I get the number?
You know what? What country has zero worry about getting replacements for organs and stuff like that? Iran.
Really?
Yeah. And it's not because they just hang people outside all the time. It's because they allow people to sell it. So if you've got $200,000 and somebody's willing to pay you $200,000 for a kidney, they're not taking both, and you're healthy, I don't see a problem with that.
All right. I'll think about it.
Yeah, there she goes. She thinks about it. Aftyn Behn's with us. I want you to stick around because I want to still talk about some other stuff.
Okay, great.
Because it's fun having her here. She's fun. She's a Democrat. Everybody settle down over there. Okay? We're having fun. Aftyn Behn's here. We were talking a lot of cool stuff. You're going to have to come in and do a podcast with me.
Ooh, I'd love that.
We got a couch and everything in there. We could sit there. We could juggle. We can, hit baseballs. I don't know what you do in that podcast room. It's pretty cool. But we were talking here about, I asked her, I said, because you got the libertarian kind of like that.
Bent, yeah.
I said, could you win in your district? And you're like, nah, those people there, they're just a bunch of nuts that voted for me.
Okay, first of all, they're not nuts. I love them.
Bunch of vegan weirdos.
I just stop. I'm in her district.
He's a constituent. So
it says everything you need to know about Bell. No, but it's hard for, over this last 4 years, the biggest group as far as even nationwide was independents. People that didn't want to claim either party. Yeah. The problem is the money's so big. They're basically two corporations fighting over something. And my frustration is, I would love to see great independent candidates out there, but it's just so hard to break in.
No, we don't have a structure for that in Tennessee. And in fact, the reason the Libertarian Party was in my office was because of the threshold of which it is to get a independent candidate on the ballot. Guess how many signatures they have to collect?
Probably have 12 million signatures.
Okay, well, that was hyperbolic. I need you to shoot lower.
25,000.
What, 50,000?
40,000, they told me. So, and when they brought a bill to lower that threshold through the legislative process, both parties voted against it.
Now, why would they do that?
Because they're not interested. Because they don't want competition. At the end of the day, the Democrats and Republicans all agree on one thing, besides how to spend our money, is they don't want competition. Two's enough. They want to be Coke and Pepsi. They don't want RC or Jolt or Tab, as we talked about the other day, rolling in. So is it 40,000 in the district you're going to be in, or is it statewide?
It depends on the race, but I asked them if it was both, because I was shocked. Like, I had no idea, and they said it's both federal and state elected or candidates. So for me, that's a big problem, because I'm a democracy purist, like, in the way that if you're a capitalist, you're a capitalist purist, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with not allowing parties and other candidates to be on the ballot.
Yeah. It's
a diversity of options is the best way forward.
Absolutely. Diversity of thought, diversity of options. I've always said this. We need poets and we need warriors, because without the poets, what are you fighting for? And without the warriors, well, your poets are going to be taken over. So that's life. But I find that fascinating that you have to have 40,000, because people don't realize the cost of getting on a ballot, because you're going to have to go out, and if you need 40,000, you're going to have to get 60. And then the people that don't want you on the ballot, they get to count it.
Well, and then the Republican Party, you have to pay to be a candidate on their ballot.
What?
As an entry point. Yes.
What's that cost?
$500.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. And then if you are not Republican enough, they will, and I guess this is endemic across both parties, but they'll go back and look to see where you voted in primaries, right? And so if you didn't vote in a particular way for a certain primary, you are removed from the ballot.
Isn't that sort of the process they use to keep Robbie Starbuck off the ballot?
Yes. And others that they don't like, so
it's a game that they want monopoly. They want monopoly. They want to, when I was in, there's a great article in a paper in California about a guy that was approached by the Democratic Party. And he said he was shocked by what they said. He said they wanted him to run. He said, I don't know what to do. He goes, don't worry, we're going to tell you what to do. He goes, well, I don't even know how to get votes. Tell us where we're going to get your votes. I don't know how to bring coalition. We've already got the coalition built for you. All we need you to do is go out and do this. The machine for both parties is set up in such a way that they're looking, this is what we need you to do. That's it. And we don't want anybody else playing, because the last thing they want is you being an independent, or you being a Democrat, or you being a Republican, switching parties. And that's not what we need. We need more voices.
Yeah. And that's why the fight has always been in the primaries of both parties, right? And the further left and far right. And that's those are the candidates that end up winning and representing us. Now, I think that worked out to our,
Bell's advantage.
To Bell's advantage. And to my district, which I do want to say, like, I have the best district in the entire state. Okay. I know you're rolling your eyes, but they are so kind, and they care, and they're engaged. And I just want to say that I'm really grateful to be not only representing them, but at this moment in time in Tennessee and American history.
Because obviously some people didn't vote for you. When they come up to you, like, because I always hear, well, I'm going to represent everybody, which is, whatever. But I feel like you actually kind of mean that.
No, I do. And let me give you an example. David Moovin with Hooven is the Republican challenger that challenged me in 2023. We have become, I had lunch with him and his wife. And I see him at the legislature, and I always give him a hug. And there was a moment last year in the legislature when a Republican told a constituent that they had signed up to testify and that they wouldn't be allowed to testify. And I thought about this, and if David wanted to come up and testify against a bill that I was presenting, I would absolutely fight for his right to do that.
Yeah.
That is my job.
That's it.
And I can't believe how, dissent, and it's just so squelched in this building. And for me, it's about representing the interest of my constituents. Now, I will say that I have some MAGA tried and true constituents that, are very angry at me at positions I've taken, but I always respond to their emails and I always answer their calls, because that is my job as their elected official.
So that's why I tell people when they text me, I hate you. I'm like, that's fine. I respect your right to hate me. I got no problem with that. Right? You can start it off with better than your blankety blank, but, obviously you're not in conversation. But I respect that right. And I think we need more conversation. I think we need a broader coalition, have people talking about stuff, and realize that, we live in a time that's fractured, and you're not going to get everything you want. And it's about, what's the best deal for everybody. And if 70%, and you probably realize this, 70% is better than 100% of nothing. And people nowadays on both sides are willing to take 100% of nothing to stand on some moral high ground.
I feel that so deeply. And I'm a leftist, I would say. And, the purity politics on both sides is just so demoralizing. And especially in a state like Tennessee, we do have a Republican supermajority. They don't negotiate or compromise, right? But, we need more dissent. We need more diversity of opinion. And we need to understand that, and I was always always taught this as an organizer. There's no enemies, no friends, just common interests.
There you go. She's awesome. Aftyn Behn. Yes. Oh, we're going to keep you for another segment.
Okay.
Belle says so. Belle probably wants to go get some free vegetarian food. Aftyn Behn is here. Where she will stick around from those. I got a bunch of questions to ask you too about the education bill and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We're having fun here because that's what we do, and I don't know how to do anything else. You want to tweet in or text in any of your questions? Feel free to do so. You know what the
737-9986 area code 615.
Yeah, I don't even know that number. It's Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7. Aftyn Behn is with us. She's a Democrat. Some of you are being very nice. Some of you are like, one of you said something about that MAGA people are angry. I said, no, the MAGA people you deal with, not all of them. Some of them are angry.
Yeah, some of them, but for the most part, and I just want to say on the record that I understand why a lot of folks voted for President Donald Trump. I do, and as I told you, I think this past election was about those who believe our institutions need to change, right? And we have that on the left and the right, and those that think the institutions we have are accommodating and beneficial to everyone, and that's just not the truth. So I always try to understand why folks vote in the way that they do, and understand that politics is cyclical, and that one way, someone may vote one way one year and vote one way the next year, because we're all very pluralistic. We have different belongings and communities we belong to. So,
and that's, that is so true. I don't think people realize that, everybody's fighting for that little bit kind of in the center who will swing a little bit right, swing a little bit left, depending on the time, what things are like. But this time the people spoke. People were angry. They felt like they were left behind. They felt like the Democrats in particular on the federal level, which I think hurt all the states across the board, had left them behind. The working person, you didn't matter anymore. It was about the elites. It was about wackadoo ideas. And that really wasn't, I say Democrats, they're union members, right? They go to church, but they believe that, women should have a right to choose. It's that went away to it's either Berkeley or bust.
Yeah, I think the next iteration of the Democratic Party is one that is hyper labor and hyper populist, and so
I think that'd be dangerous.
The train.
If I'm the Republicans, you better figure that out.
Well, that's the train that I'm on. So.
And you know what? That's kind of the train that Trump was on, right?
Yeah,
he was big with the unions. I mean, the fact that the unions were like, hey, you know what? We're not going to endorse you. We're going to stay neutral in this.
Yeah, I mean, but unfortunately, I think the oligarchs are going to be. I think that's going to be problematic.
The oligarchs, I love that. We always think like oligarchs. We say that as if they're like real oligarchs, like they are in Russia. They're not the same.
I mean, but the technocratic oligarchs.
Yeah.
But can I try a joke? I think your audience.
All right, let's do it. Here we go.
Okay, so I said on one of my videos, I said, and shout out to the Axe body spray commercial rejects that are rating and that's Musk's. Oh, I didn't say it well. I needed to work on it. This is embarrassing.
Bad jokes. We'll try. Let's talk about the other bill you and I were joking about. Because it's, Belle and I have been talking about it. Essentially, hey, if your kid's got asthma and they need the inhaler, they shouldn't have to run somewhere to try to get the inhaler.
Yeah, so this is a bill brought to me by a constituent who is a physician, and she prescribed a certain anti-seizure medication that if the child starts to have a seizure, they need to take it immediately. Unfortunately, and trust me, I called in this county, I called the school board, I called the county attorneys who directed me to X, Y, and Z, and the ambiguity of state law did not say, or it was so ambiguous that it didn't say this student could have this specific type of drug on them. And I just want to say that this is on the heels of a bill that was passed last year called the Parental Rights and Responsibilities Act, of which basically gives parents a supremacy clause in everything. And what that has materialized and looked like on the ground is that parents are being called at school by the school nurse to give their kid an Advil, even though they've already written on a paper that is approved.
Well, and again, the overreach of some of this insanity. And I recognize we're a very litigious society, and somebody thinks that somebody's going to hand somebody an inhaler and they're going to give it to their buddy to get high or whatever.
That's exactly what yes, that's
you guys going to go get high? Oh man, we got some inhaler. This is going to be cool.
They're going to start selling their anti-seizure medications at school.
And what's the pushback on this? Because we just passed school choice, right? Shouldn't we want this? Now, granted, I'm sure a lot of the parents are like, yeah, of course your kid, you shouldn't have to call me for an Advil or something like that. Is there pushback for this?
From folks that laud small government, this added a major administrative bureaucratic layer to schools, because now they have to ask parents. I had school nurses email me in my district saying that they're not allowed to give like a wet wipe to a student first. I mean, it's insanity.
What's the reasoning? Like, does the kid gonna eat it? It's like, dude, don't give Johnny a wet wipe. You know he likes to eat them. Like, what's the...
Because parents know all and parents know best.
Yeah, but the parents probably going, why are you calling me?
Yes, no.
Because it's one parent that complained that somebody goes, and I'm going to take up a bill because I need to pass something, otherwise I'm going to not, people are going to be mad at me. And so then you got this thing that you think is innocuous. Now you're calling every parent.
Yeah. That's right.
They
That's
don't
right.
want that.
And I'm interested to hear what your audience thinks about this. But the result of this Parents' Rights and Responsibilities Act actually exacerbated an HIV epidemic in Memphis. And the reason is our health departments right now, if you are under the age of 18, you can go to a health department and get an STI test, right? Without telling your parents. And so this bill, which we didn't know at the time, now they say it's fine, but that kids weren't going to the health department to get testing, and therefore it was exacerbating this epidemic. Now, I've heard parents, on the other hand, say, well, if kids are doing X, Y, and Z, I should know about it. I should be the one taking them. But what we fail to realize is that a lot of kids have adversarial relationships with their parents.
Yeah, not a lot. But, well, every kid at some point in time has an adversarial relationship with their parent. And they don't want them to know certain things.
Yes.
I'm not always like... coming from a place where I came from that was the exact opposite what you're facing here, which is like, hey, it's California, and if you want to go get an abortion when you're 12, your teacher will take you. Well, that's a little bit much, but you won't let them have an Advil, right? Like, it's one of those things where people had issues. It's finding the middle ground of where's the not insane take. Do you ever just stand up there and go, is anybody here going to talk about common sense?
All the time. Literally, that's me every day. I've made that my whole identity. Like, this is stupid. This is dumb. What are we doing?
Do you say it out loud?
Yes, and you get called out of order.
And what do you, I would be like, are we doing this for real? Are you guys this stupid? Like, are we fighting over this?
To be fair, I think some of them do have good intentions. Like, they'll say, well, my cousin brought me this bill and I'm going to run it.
Well, I understand that, but you do realize, okay, your cousin had an issue. Or it's like when we joke about people who are overweight and everybody's like, it's because I've got a thyroid issue. Not everybody has a thyroid issue. Maybe one or two people do, but we need to be honest there. It's your cousin had a problem, but there's a gazillion kids who don't have that problem, and parents don't want to be bugged at school.
Well, and what I realize is, because I'm a social worker, a macro social worker, which means I think about systems and how it impacts a lot of people, and a lot of these legislators don't have that background. And I'll say another issue with the Republican supermajority, just supermajorities in general, it's herd mentality, and so they don't, it doesn't welcome dissent. And should someone say in their caucus, hey, this is really, really dumb, it continues to move because no one wants to dissent to it. And so I do think that supermajorities, especially our supermajority, like it just breeds kind of this conformity that I think should be kind of penetrated.
Yeah. So, and I've said this, I'm a libertarian, I'm a conservatarian at times, but I like to have all of my beliefs challenged, because if my challenges can stand up to stuff, that's great. If they can't, or I need to learn something else, fantastic. I'm all about that. And if you're not willing to do that, and I've always said this, people get mad at me because I'll say something about Trump or this, that, and the other, because I'm going to call out my own side. I'm going to call out somebody else's side, just like I would my kid. Well, Johnny, I don't care about Johnny's parents, right? I'm your parent, right? And you've got to answer to me. Talking to Aftyn Behn here. We're having a lot of fun. Let's talk about the school choice bill, because I know you were thrilled by it.
We were not.
Why weren't you?
Well, I'm curious because did you grow up in Arizona?
No, I grew up in, by the way, I was in Arizona for the last several years.
Oh, that's why, okay.
They dumped that one really poorly.
Well, okay, so say more, because one of my talking points about this is it has blown $1 billion hole in the Arizona state budget. Well, is that not true?
It absolutely has, because they thought they were going to have like $65 million. Next thing you know, it's $988 million, because everybody wanted the money because they wanted to do something different with their kids, because they did want choice. And which was great, but they weren't expecting that much. And here, I think they've tried to learn from that. We're going to put some parameters on it. But you and I both know, what do those parameters really look like? And, because if you don't do it right, it will blow a hole in your budget.
And the guardrails were off. I think there were a lot of false promises. And I think I just want to congratulate and celebrate the homeschool movement, which was very much anti this bill, because they don't want government interference in what they do. And they felt like this was, this would spiral into something that they couldn't control. And I don't disagree with them.
No, I want to see how it's implemented. And Some of it I like. Some of it, again, it's all like anything. It's how it's implemented. We could put all those great things out there, but if you don't put it into play the right way, and that's what Arizona did. Arizona went out, and Doug Ducey was so happy to pass that thing. And I don't think anybody, when I've talked to Doug, he didn't realize how many people were going to go for it.
But how do you claw that back?
You don't claw it back at this point in time. They have to figure out where they make that up. But everybody else can learn from it, right? Like, you've got to learn from, okay, look, we're going to have parameters. We're going to try this up to 10,000 students. We're not going to make this eligible to everybody. We're going to have some means testing because we want some kids who are in other areas that their schools aren't good. And for whatever reason, they don't have, well, we can always talk about not enough funding. The reality is we spend way too much money on middle management than we should. I'd rather a teacher make $100,000 than an administrator. But if you don't put the parameters and the guardrails in there, people will take it because they want a better opportunity for their kids, which I don't blame them. They want some choice, especially if they're in a bad area. And next thing you know, you look up and what was supposed to be, $50 million is already $250 million. And now where's that coming from?
Well, and my biggest issue is with privatization is that it's just billionaires making more money. I mean, the amount of money that has been spent in this state to ensure that this bill passes is now within the hundreds of millions, which could be spent on educating our children. And this was a plan brought by, your, you don't like to say oligarchs, but the billionaire class to defund public education and privatize and make a ton of profit. And that's my issue with it. I believe in publicizing almost everything, which is probably where we differ. Like, you believe in a small state. I believe in a robust, big government.
No, I don't want big government. What I do want is competent. I'd rather have a big, competent government than a little government.
Can I get that? Can I get that in writing?
Absolutely. But it's got to be competent, and that's the other thing. We don't have always competent people working.
Well, but imagine in states like Arizona and Tennessee where you have legislators who run on being anti-government, which I think is, and I know, you didn't grow up here, but in East Tennessee, we had, we were at the core of the New Deal, the Tennessee Valley Authority, right? It was a huge governmental project. There's probably families that disagree with it, but government used to do big things, and it electrified an entire region and brought people out of poverty. And the government can do big, great things, but the problem is you have people in the Tennessee General Assembly who want to, what's the quote? Shrink government.
No, for me,
shrink it into the bathtub. Or
Anyways,
I don't know.
First of all, what brings people out of poverty is capitalism, but not the insanity that we have in a lot of places.
Disagree on that, but
government doesn't bring people out of poverty. They don't. They take from people who have a lot of money and try to distribute.
Capitalism keeps poor people poor. In my opinion,
do they? We've lost. Here's a perfect example. Capitalism is spread throughout the world, and we are at the lowest we've been with poverty globally. And it's not because governments did anything. It's because capitalism. People have free markets. They're able to do something. Now, crony capitalism, man, that's a different thing.
Which is what we have.
Which in a lot of places
we have a captured corporate environment.
In some cases, there's no doubt about that. We do. And, federal side, there's no doubt because power craves money, right? And money craves some power. So they all like to get together. They don't care who they give it to. Right? The number one color isn't red or blue, it's green.
Yeah.
They don't care who they give it to as long as they're able to get what they need. So, and we're going to keep it around for one more segment. We're having fun here. Aftyn's here. Aftyn Behn. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. We got some questions for you.
Oh.
Some of the people here are even,
I will not be giving my number out.
They don't hate you, is what I'm saying. Some of them
have it.
So some of them are, they're actually kind of, it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
Some people are, government's not the answer. No, we need some government, just not too much government. So we'll talk about that. Bunch of other stuff straight ahead. Aftyn Behn here with us. It is the Chad Benson Show. Super Talk 99.7. Aftyn Behn is here. We're just talking about property tax. And property tax is a weird thing. And I said, that's the one thing in California where, if you guys don't know, Prop 13 is the one thing in California that if you are a Democrat and you decide you're going to take on Prop 13, they will vote you out in a heartbeat. They will put Trump in as governor if they thought it would stop, because it makes everybody's houses overnight unaffordable.
But can you explain your mother's situation?
So my mom bought her house in like 86 for $280,000. It's worth like 1.5 million. It's not really worth 1.5, but that's what they say it is. She would be taxed today at that 1.5 million. It would make it, she couldn't live there. She couldn't live there. And most people wouldn't be able to afford their homes. They'd have to sell their homes because they couldn't afford it. And who's going to be able to afford houses?
Right.
So that's why they stopped it. right there. And the other side of it is California also got in trouble because the house across the street's worth $3, but you assessed mine at $500,000. That seems weird.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Very random.
But as we're talking about, I mean, don't you, my understanding of the property tax is that it's the most stable kind of routine tax that you can have to ensure that money funnels to your firefighter department, your schools, right? Like it's this kind of, no, you wouldn't agree?
It's a hard thing to figure out what's the right thing to do. You usually by county. In some cases, some states do it by the state. Where's the happy medium? Because you want your firefighters, you want your police officers to be funded.
The public infrastructure that you benefit from.
100%. That's why pot, right? You know, what happens when you fix all the potholes? That money's got to go somewhere, right? And it's also about, what's going to, you don't want to put it all on, because what ends up happening is when you start doing that with the property taxes and certain things like that, all of a sudden now you're putting it all onto homeowners. And you're putting on homeowners, and now that middle class is starting to eat more of it. And then, as you talk about.
So what about a progressive property tax?
Could you? Because the rich don't care. The rich, like Bannon, Steve Bannon, you and I were joking about. Steve Bannon told Trump, raise it to 100%. Nobody's going to pay it. They don't have to. They know what they're doing. That's why they hired. They're not breaking the law. You just gave them the rule, and they followed the rule. So those things don't matter. It's finding the happy medium, because, I tell everybody, we all would like to have no tax. It'd be fantastic, right? But that's not the reality, because you also want services.
Well, and you also posited, that Tennessee, we have a lot of sales taxes. All right, here's my second joke. I think it's going to land. Okay,
this isn't, we'll see.
The
last one was awful. You were like Elon Musk and Friday night.
Delivery could have been better. I like to say that Tennessee is 13 sales taxes in a trench coat.
Look at that.
It gets a lot of laughs at my town halls.
With the hippies.
So, an economy that is based on compounded sales taxes is one that's really regressive, because, as I said, the lowest income earners spend more of their income on sales tax than the wealthy, right? And so when you don't have, say we ban property tax, right, which the goal is to ban it at every level, an economy that is dependent upon sales taxes, when a recession hits, it's over. You're not bringing in the revenue that you want to bring in, and therefore everything fails around you.
Yeah,
do you not agree?
That's there. But you also have to think, too, when you do that, the lower, you want everybody, I think everybody should have skin in the game, right? We always hear, the rich don't pay their fair share. Well, they pay 50% of all the federal taxes, a small group of people, and there's a bottom 30 or 40% don't pay anything. So it's hard to look at somebody and say, you don't pay your fair share. We don't want to put the burden on the middle class. Right, and we don't want.
Which we're both in agreement.
Yeah, we don't want to put the burden on the middle class, and
But do you think the burden should be on the lower classes?
No, I don't think. We'd like to have burden on nobody. I think we would like to spread the burden out. Obviously, the topper half is going to pay a lot, but at the same time, everybody needs to have skin in the game. But not to the point where government is essentially, as they like to say, revenue. You don't make anything, so you don't even give me a hat. So it's finding out where's that happy medium, because you're not going to get everything you want.